What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of the Infinite Universe podcast. If you grew up watching Saturday morning cartoons, collecting the figures and comics, and get super nerdy about superhero movies and television, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Jay Days, here with my sidekick. He's cooler than Robin, but not as kick-ass as Bucky Barnes, Ben Metlis.
What's up, everyone?
And the day that's been 10 years in the making is finally here. And in today's episode, we'll be talking all about this epic movie, including many spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, are you really even a fan at all? All right, before we get into all that, I want to mention our giveaway. That's right, in celebration of the release of the new Avengers film, we will be giving away a Thanos Pop Funko figure to one of our subscribers. All you got to do is subscribe either on iTunes Podcast or YouTube and leave a comment. That's a must. Make sure to leave a comment. And on episode 6, we'll announce a winner. So once again, the free giveaway, Thanos Pop Funko figure. Subscribe on iTunes or YouTube and leave a comment. You can also add us on Instagram and Twitter. All right, Ben, so let me ask you this. How exciting was this film? And when you heard this in IMAX 3D for the first time again, what did you feel?
Dude, getting chills right now. My spidey senses hair is tingling.
Ben, Avengers Infinity War. The day has arrived. We got to see it on the very first day, Thursday, 7 p.m. showing.
3D IMAX. That was the way to watch it.
Definitely.
That was definitely the way to watch it. I mean, we were like 12-year-olds walking into that movie theater.
It felt like I was going on a roller coaster at Six Flags. It really did. I was so excited that I was on the edge of my seat the entire film. And,
intense.
And when that Marvel logo hit that screen, I mean, we heard the audience.
Went into applause.
Yeah, we were all excited.
Especially when that 10 came up in the Marvel Studios image. That was a nice touch to the fans. 10 years of the film so far.
I liked it.
Yeah, definitely liked it too. Well, finally, it's here. We got what we asked for, and we got more than we asked for, I think.
100%. It was amazing.
When people asked me right after, because of course we saw it that first opening show, and there were a lot of people I know who had to wait a couple of days. They were like, no spoilers. What did you think? Intense is the first word that comes to mind. Intense. Like, I wanted to say epic, but that's too cliche. So I think that intense is the only word that could describe how I felt during that entire movie.
Yeah, such a wide range of emotions ran through you. Let's talk about the box office and the pre-sales. So this movie set pre-sales records. It made 106.7 opening day in the U.S. Opening weekend, it made 285 million. Worldwide, it made 382 million in 52 markets, which doesn't even include China, which is going to add so much more revenue soon. And then, I mean, Ben, we like you said, we saw it opening day.
I saw it again the following night.
And then I saw it 2 days later. And now I think we're probably going to try to go see it in 4DX. Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about that the other day. I've never thought that 4DX would be worth the value. You know, $30 is kind of expensive for seeing a movie, but
I think this would be the movie, though.
Exactly.
To spend the money on.
Yes, it totally will be. That kind of experience it deserves the treatment that 4DX promises. So I'm kind of excited.
All right, so what about the overall impression of the movie, Ben? Did it live up to the hype?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, completely. Totally lived up to the hype. I mean,
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Like, it did not disappoint at all from the beginning to the end. And we'll get into that deeper.
Yeah, one of the things I really loved about the film is that it had so much audience reaction. When a hero came on the screen, like Captain America, people would applaud and cheer. When Wakanda was shown again, people applaud and cheered. Or that awesome scene at the end of the film where Thor came down to start effing crap up all over those aliens. That was really epic. That was awesome.
I also like to see the different team ups with the characters. We saw variations of characters that have never A, interacted in other movies, or B, didn't even know they existed. And it was very organic the way they combined these characters on screen and split them up, and it wasn't forced.
Like Bucky and Groot, that was a cool scene
Yeah.
when they were, going around in a circle shooting. What were some of the other team ups
Doctor
that were kind of
Strange
cool?
and Iron Man was very interesting. Rocket and Thor was probably one of my favorite team ups of the movie.
Nice. You want to know what I like about those team ups now that you mention it? Do you remember collecting the cards back in the day?
Yeah.
And you would get those cool team up cards of two heroes that you would never really expect to maybe work together, or maybe they have maybe once or twice in a cool storyline in the comics. That's kind of what I felt like we got with this film. Those cool team up trading cards that we used to collect.
I used to have books filled with
Oh
those
yeah,
Marvel
I
cards.
still have those.
I'm sure my mom has them.
I have
probably
like
somewhere
in a
her,
dusty box somewhere in a basement.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was definitely awesome. Yeah, my opinion on the movie, it was like I said, everything I could ever wanted in a Marvel film. All my favorite characters coming to the screen against a badass villain who, just the whole movie gave me goosebumps. I left the theater in awe. That's how I say I left the
Yeah.
theater in awe. And I'm gonna probably go see it again because it was that good.
I want the
For the
DVD.
third time. I want the DVD now, man.
Me too.
Like I wish I could watch it over and over and over again. Because it was that good to me. It was that fun. It was 18 movies kind of summed up, to this one crucial moment in a story arc. And it was just such a fun ride. Now, although, all our fans and a lot of, would you say like Rotten Tomatoes gave it really good
It's got
reviews.
84% right now on Rotten Tomatoes. Metacritic, it has in the high 80s too.
But there were some critics with some not so good reviews of the film.
Yeah, I would say though, from what I read from some of the critics that didn't favor it more than others, they didn't understand.
Yeah, they weren't really like fans of the genre.
Yeah, this is one they saw that Avengers was doing big numbers. They knew this has become a pop culture sensation, so they felt responsible as different movie critics that they needed to go see it. But they probably never saw any of the other movies, or at least the other 18 that were important to tell this storyline.
Or invested into these characters, or just comic books growing up, perhaps. I don't know.
One critic that was interesting was that he said there was no character development except for the villain. And like my first thought was, well, that was the character that needed development.
Yeah, because we had all these other movies with these characters and their stories. Yeah, we know them. So that's what I'm saying. If you come into that with the perspective of not, kind of being a fan of the genre, A, B, not knowing the story of all these different characters, and yeah, you might go like, wow,
You'll be disappointed.
Yeah, who are these other characters? Why don't they talk about them? Well, they've talked about them for 18 other films.
Yeah.
Right? All right. So going into this movie, though, we had a whole lot of predictions, and were any of the theories true?
No,
No, not
I was
very,
completely wrong.
not many of them. A lot of our predictions, a lot of the things that were circling the internet and on the blogs and stuff were, unfortunately, totally wrong. So
I feel a lot of them are wrong. Although I have to say, John, you were correct about one thing you predicted in our last video, and we'll get into that later.
awesome.
But
I was actually correct on a few things, sort of, kind of, and there's still a chance for some. We'll go into those a little bit deeper. But let's talk about where we left off with Thor Ragnarok. The movie starts off Infinity War right after the events of Thor Ragnarok. Remember the bonus scene, Ben? At the end of Thor Ragnarok was Thanos' ship coming up, right?
over the Asgardians.
And Loki and Thor looking on, right?
And then this movie, I thought was a perfect touch, was the Marvel screen coming up, and then all of a sudden you heard an SOS distress signal from the Asgardian ship, and it goes into the ship being attacked by Thanos' ship.
Yeah, so we come into it with the ship already attacked and destroyed, and most of the Asgardians dead already, and it really just sets the tone for the entire movie.
The first 5 minutes does.
Which is so awesome. You knew going into this movie that it was going to be such a wild ride within the first 5 or 10 minutes, because we see the Hulk getting his ass kicked like
By
we
Thanos?
have
Oh, man,
we've never seen before.
It was kind of like you said before that it was like a street brawler fighting some high tech like ninjutsu, like
Mixed martial
mixed
arts.
martial arts guy.
Yeah.
Like at first, Hulk comes in bashing at Thanos, and then he just kind of boom, 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 scares Hulk away from the rest
Yeah,
of the movie.
he's blocking some of Hulk's
Yeah.
moves, and then just kind of
He
lumps
pulls a
him
Bane
up.
on him at 1 second. Remember?
Yeah,
puts him over
he
his head,
does. He
just
pulls the Bane
slams
on
him
him.
onto the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he starts to fade back into Bruce Banner, and even just before that, we kind of skipped ahead of one of our heroes. We start off with Thanos standing over Thor, where Thor's just his ass is kicked. He can't even like stand up. He's been bruised and put in his place by
Loki's
Thanos.
on his knees.
Yeah,
Yeah, we see two of our heroes who are immediately in bad circumstances. The two that ended Thor Ragnarok. And they were standing tall at the end of Thor Ragnarok, but now it seems really like there is no hope.
yeah, and like I said, it's just setting the tone for the entire movie because in this same scene, we get into Heimdall dying, right? Getting stabbed through the heart by
Thanos.
by Thanos.
Loki's
Loki.
neck broken.
We
by
get
Thanos.
Loki dying. Did you expect to see Loki dying in the first
No.
10 minutes of this film?
Well, the second that I saw Loki got killed by Thanos in the first, like, what was it, 8 minutes in? It automatically said to me, okay, there's no hope for anyone in this film. That, whoever you think's going to survive.
Yeah, whoever
is
you
not,
thought was safe is
not safe.
Hardly. We're gonna have a lot of surprises.
I mean, he's been in
felt
5
that
of the
too.
movies, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. And then we also get introduced to one of my favorite characters in the film, Ebony Maw. He was really cool.
He was.
Throughout the film.
There was a really important part, I thought, in this film where after they get the Tesseract, Loki gives it up easily, because of course Loki does, that Ebony Maw hands the Tesseract to Thor and crowns him almost like the king of the universe, stating that there has never been a being alive that has ever held 2 Infinity Stones at once.
Yeah, so they made it a point to stress that, although we have seen the Infinity Stones in these movies and people holding them and controlling their power, we haven't seen anyone with 2 or more.
2 of them.
Yeah.
I also like this part because it didn't take long for Thanos to get 2 of the Infinity Stones. And throughout the movie, the pacing was pretty good for him collecting them. Because I was hoping it wasn't going to take forever.
Yeah, that they were going to drag out all these stones. Just right off the jump, they're like, hey, here's
2 of
2.
them.
And it also literally spells out for us where the other Infinity Stones are, which is nice.
It dispelled immediately a lot of the theories. Now, one of my theories I stated was I thought the Soul Stone was underneath Wakanda, but immediately Thanos turns to the Black Order and says, okay, 2 of the stones are on Earth, go get them. And
The Time Stone and the Mind Stone. Yep.
And automatically you're like, well, there's no stone underneath Wakanda. There you go.
Exactly. All right, so moving on. Speaking of the Mad Titan, this basically was a Thanos movie in many respects.
Well, they said that from the beginning. Kevin Feige said this is going to be based around him.
And one of the things I really liked about the character, the CGI, they nailed it. I feel like they actually did it justice. It didn't look cheesy to me. It didn't look like some other big baddies from some other comic book
team ups. Are you hinting at anyone?
Yeah, yeah. I'm just gonna say it. I mean, if you compare Steppenwolf CGI to Thanos CGI, I mean, it's like night and day to me.
The DC fanboys are going to be pissed at you over this.
I mean, I know they will, but they got to come to reality that DC hasn't been killing it in the movie department only. They kill it on TV, but for movies, But just going back to the CGI, it was really good. It was well done. You could see like a lot of facial expressions.
It looked like Josh Brolin.
It did look like
Josh
yep.
Brolin.
It looked like his facial expressions, his motions, his movements.
Voice was perfect for Thanos.
Yep,
too.
he was a great actor for this role. There was a lot of depth for in this role, which was I kind of like that.
Well, to go into also Josh Brolin as the actor, I think that he was an important casting choice because he's a likable actor, and in Thanos, he was a likable villain. He was an awful villain and wanted to commit one of the most horrendous atrocities across the universe. But this movie was his movie, and you kind of built up a liking for him. You kind of sympathized with him a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And this movie also explained his ML also explained his MO well. I think even a little bit better than the comics. I think, maybe the comics got a little confusing and convoluted with.
Well, they changed the backstory because in the comics he wanted to impress death by killing half the universe, and in this one, it's what they call the culling of the masses, where go into history. A lot of dictators and famous antagonists in fiction have used this concept, such as Ozymandias from Watchmen, The Purge does this, and Hunger Games, where you kind of eliminate a third of the population so the remaining two-thirds could live in harmony and peace.
Yeah. And in this case, Thanos wanted to
Kill half the
half
universe.
half the universe. Yeah. Yeah, so let's talk about these stones now, all right? So again, the movie kicks off with Thanos collecting two stones right off the jump. We got two of our longtime characters dead, and Thanos sends his goons, the Black Order, to Earth to try to get the Time Stone. So he sends Ebony Maw and Cole Obsidian to go over to the Time Stone, which is around Doctor Strange's neck.
Now, it is a reminder that Hemdale, right before he got killed, he sent Hulk to Earth using the
Yeah, I
Bifrost.
like that. That was a really cool
Now,
scene.
that was how Hulk, turning into Bruce Banner, told Stephen Strange and Wong about it, who then contacted Iron Man immediately to try to get, a team together to defend against this enemy coming.
And that scene where you see Bruce Banner crashing through Doctor Strange's sanctuary is actually a scene right out of the comics. But instead of the Hulk, it's actually the Silver Surfer. But fans of the comics definitely, paid, like the little head nod to that scene. It's one of the first couple pages in the comic. Um,
There's a lot of head nods in this movie to the comic. I think
yeah,
that, and that's important to note from Marvel and Disney, is that they may change aspects of the comics that some people nitpick at, but in my opinion, they do enough of, hey fans, we see you here. There is like a respect for the comic right in this scene right here, and you noticed that it was Silver Surfer, but they changed it to Hulk. But so what?
yeah.
They're
So this art scene was pretty cool though because it had we got to see a lot of Ebony Maw's powers, him going up against Doctor Strange and Iron Man, as well as Bruce Banner and Spider Man. And they actually just end up, going up on the spaceship up into space, and this is the first time we get a look at the Iron Spider suit. So that's pretty cool.
all in the first 20 minutes, 20, 30 minutes, you would say?
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
say probably 20 minutes of the movie. And then we leave that scene with Bruce Banner calling up Captain America from the phone that Cap gave
Iron Man.
Iron Man at the end of Civil War. So that was cool. Again, there was also a lot of callbacks in this movie, which I was a big fan of as well. A lot of nods, a lot of callbacks, and a couple Easter eggs that, maybe we'll shout those out as we go along. But then we had the other two goons from the Black Order. Ben, why don't you talk about this?
Now we had Corvus Glaive and Proxima Midnight go after Vision and Scarlet Witch. Now remember, Vision has the Mind Stone in his head, and they become a love interest. And Wanda's protecting him, but then as they're getting kind of defeated by both of the two members of the Black Order,
Yeah,
in
because
comes
Vision gets
Captain
because
America.
Vision gets stabbed, so he's not healing and he doesn't have all his powers. So it's basically Wanda trying to protect Vision, and she's kind of overwhelmed by two of these guys from the Black Order.
She does have impressive power, though, and I like that
And
about
we
this
definitely
movie.
got to see her develop a lot of her power in this movie. We get where we see that her power has grown from previous.
She's learned how to use it more correctly. More now, how hard did that audience clap when Captain
Yeah.
America stepped out of the shadows?
And he caught that. What was that, like,
The
spear?
spear?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was really awesome. One of the, again, another moment where you're getting so much crowd reaction. It was so much fun to be in that theater opening night, because if you're in that theater opening night, you're a diehard fan for
Yeah.
this. You're not some casual fan to go
Do
see
you know
that.
how many people, when they were like, "Oh, have you seen it?" and I said, "I saw it Thursday," and they're like, "Already? You've seen it twice already?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, Captain comes in, the crowd goes wild. Him, Falcon, and Black Widow come in and they save the day basically, and they bring Wanda and Vision back to Avengers headquarters. And then let's talk about some of the other characters we had in the movie because we got to catch up with some of them. The Guardians of the Galaxies meet up with Thor.
With one of the funnier scenes in the movie too.
Yeah, there was a whole bunch of funny jokes in this scene, and with these characters in general throughout the movie. That was one of the highlights of this film was the Guardians cast. And Thor, lands on their ship. They bring him on board, and he tells him what happened to him and his ship, as well as the destruction of Xandar. So, at this point, they realize, they know where two of the Infinity Stones are, and their plan is to go to nowhere to get the Reality Stone from the Collector, because the last time we saw the Reality Stone, the Asgardians gave it to the Collector for safekeeping. Now, we also find out that Gamora secretly knows where the third stone was as well, the Soul Stone. Now, Thanos knows that Gamora would come looking for him and for this stone, so he sets up a trap for her. All right, so one of the things I really liked about this scene on Nowhere was that there was a kind of an Easter egg right at the beginning of it with Tobias from Arrested Development when he was painted as one of the Blue Men from the Blue Man Group. A fun little Easter egg in this has to do with the Russo brothers.
Yeah, they directed the pilot episode for Arrested Development, which actually won them an Emmy.
Nice, that's what's up. So that was a fun little. I like Easter eggs like that. I like things that as a fan of something else, you see in something that you love. That's kind of cool. But really, why I like this scene, we got to really see the Reality Stone, and we got to see the true power of it. Because when we've seen it in the past in Thor: The Dark World, I don't know, man. Like, I didn't like that movie much. I didn't watch it many times, but I didn't really get the full idea of the Reality Stone. But in this scene, when we seen Thanos use it, man, what a fun stone it was.
I think also Thor: The Dark World was one of the weaker Marvel movies, but I think
100%.
also the Reality Stone in that movie, the potential wasn't realized. And in this movie, Thanos not only understood the Infinity Stones, but understood how to wield their powers. And that's
because he was given the illusion of the Collector basically begging for his life. And then he used it on Drax and Mantis. Drax breaking him into cubes and Mantis into this swirly little thing.
Like ribbons.
Yeah, so, and that was really cool to me. I was like, wow, that's the Reality Stone. That's what it does. It could alter anything people see, basically. And when Peter Quill tried to shoot Gamora, the
bubbles came out?
The bubbles came out of the gun instead of the laser. That was really cool to see. And I was like, oh, the Reality Stone's badass. Now that I see it in play from Infinity Wars, I automatically like Thor: The Dark World slightly better for whatever reason. I don't know why. But another great part about this movie is that it really dives deep into the relationship between Thanos and Gamora.
Yeah, the backstory of the relationship is really emotional, and you see a father-daughter relationship, even though not the most healthiest, and it is built on some terrible, terrible things that Thanos did to Gamora's people. You see there's an affection from Thanos to Gamora.
Yeah, and then Thanos takes Gamora because he knows that she knows where the stone is, which is Vormir.
And Thanos coaxes out of her by torturing Nebula.
Yeah, and we basically find out that all the predictions that we thought the Soul Stone could be, we're all wrong.
Absolutely
so that
wrong.
Whole Hemdell, the whole
Inside Captain America.
Inside Tony Stark,
Underneath Wakanda.
Yeah, the heart-shaped herb, whatever, all of those are way off, really wrong, because it was on this other planet. But one prediction that I did have right, Ben.
Red Skull.
Red Skull. I said this so long ago. First off, there's no way that they're going to get rid of Red Skull that easily in a Captain America storyline. He's too crucial to Captain America as a nemesis. You can't just take him out in one film. Plus, when he did get taken out, it looked like to me, and I said this back in another podcast even, that he got beamed up like an Asgardian
Bifrost.
tube or whatever you want to call it.
The Rainbow Bridge.
Yeah. So we got Red Skull. We found out what happened to him. He basically got banished to Vormir to watch over
He became
the
the
Soul
steward
Stone.
of the Soul Stone. So basically, when Red Skull tried to handle the Tesseract, aka the Space Stone, at the end of Captain America: The First Avenger, it lashed back at him and it banished him to the far end of the universe
Yep.
to act as a guardian for the Soul Stone. And it leads into actually one of my favorite parts, and I think one of your favorite parts too, right?
Yeah, let's talk about some of our favorite scenes in this movie, and this is where it starts for me. And again, leading up to this point, there's a lot of awesome scenes and action and story arcs that are happening. It was a whole ride all the way through, but at this point in the movie was another moment where all of the crowd, you heard a gasp. When you saw the Red Skull's face, everyone was like, "Oh!" And I was like, "Oh, this is
Yeah.
good." And then this led to what I think. There's so many good scenes in this, but this is definitely one of my favorite. And you agree with me?
The revelation of what Thanos had to sacrifice. This was a building method to develop Thanos as a character that's deeper than I just want to kill everybody.
Yeah. So with the Soul Stone, in order to retrieve it, you would have to sacrifice the thing you love.
A soul for a soul.
A soul for a soul. So this is the instructions that Red Skull's giving him.
And now Gamora's convinced that Thanos doesn't love anything, and
So
she starts
she
laughing
starts
at him.
laughing, saying, "Ha, this is the universe, like teaching you a lesson, essentially, saying, you do all this killing and
No
violence
retribution for your acts.
and now the one thing you want, you can't have because you don't love anything."
And he starts crying, and she thinks he's crying over the fact that he failed, but Red Skull informs her that no, he's not crying
And
over
I knew
himself.
it though. I knew it already.
I knew it too.
Before Red Skull said it, I knew it. I'm like, oh
When he
shit,
starts
Gamora, start
crying-
running, girl.
And
You got to get the hell out of there, Gamora.
Well, she makes a face like, "Oh my god!" Like I think she never even thought for once
and
that
then
he
Red
loved
Skull,
her.
and then Red Skull says what you just said, and that's when she realizes because she sees him crying, and then Red Skull says that, and then that's when it's just like, oh fuck.
Now, I like also the fact of how he throws her off. He doesn't just kind of like Hulk. He didn't pick her up and throw her. He didn't toss her. He didn't punch her. He grabbed her by the arm and he lightly shoved her over the edge. Kind of like he couldn't even look at it. If you notice, he turns his head as he's doing it because he's ashamed of what he's doing. But this is something he has dreamt about and fought for and planned for half of his life. And he couldn't let something like
And to
this-
add insult to injury, they do it in kind of like slow motion as she's
Yeah.
falling, and I'm like, oh, this is so sad right now. I don't think anyone expected Gamora on the chopping block,
No,
or at least not in that way. No one expected her in that way to die.
no, it was very emotional.
And that was a point in this movie where I was again like, this is amazing. This, I didn't expect this at all. That Red Skull twist right there just had me like overly excited as a fan. Now this Gamora thing has sent me over, like
it was
emotional.
very impactful on how you viewed Thanos because they could have easily turned him into a brutish dictator who just wanted to kill half the universe, but they really created him into an emotional being.
How
that
many
had-
times has a movie done that to you where you're like, oh fuck, that's so crazy, and then in another minute or two something even crazier happens where you're like, what?
Well, this whole movie did that.
Yes,
over and over
exactly.
again. Like that's why I said it was intense because there was no like when we were trying to pinpoint our favorite scenes, there was a bunch of them. I pinpointed scenes that stuck out for me as like I really enjoyed, but not one is not so much greater than the rest. They're minute differences
Yeah.
in how great they are compared to the
And
others.
they're favorites to us for personal reasons, perhaps even,
Yeah.
how the scene spoke to us. But let's go on with some of our other favorite scenes. The fight on Titan
The Guardians of the Galaxy meeting up with Iron Man and Spider-Man.
and Doctor Strange.
Strange,
Yep,
yeah.
to wait for Thanos, essentially.
because they knew he was coming for the Time Stone.
Yeah, and they knew he would be coming there to meet Ebony Maw to retrieve the time stone. So they
Yes.
were waiting for him, setting kind of like a trap, like a couple of them hiding out, right?
It was a cool interaction. Of course, everyone saw it in the trailer how you had two egomaniacs like trying to decide a plan, Iron Man and Star-Lord.
And then even another egomaniac in his own way, Doctor Strange. So you had three big egos, all in the same room.
Now, we did see Doctor Strange utilizing a lot more of his mystical powers
Yeah.
than we've seen before.
So he went from being some child's party wizard to this like phenomenal sorcerer between his movie and this movie, because in this we've seen his powers magnified by 1,000. He's uh throwing out some red bands, some scarlet bands with all sorts of mystical powers. He's
Creating stepping stones for Peter to jump on as he's attacking Thanos.
he's also bursting himself into several different Doctor Strange and
Different arms.
and using his mystical powers to battle them all at the same time.
We saw all of them using some this was a great team effort, and as we were discussing before, it was a fantastic way for the movie to kind of create multiple characters team ups.
Yeah.
Like we saw Peter Quill attached the thing to Thanos' arm, which like magnified him to the ground. Spider-Man jumping through portals from Doctor Strange, kicking Thanos and then disappearing.
Yeah, and cracking jokes
and
too.
then cracking jokes. And then Peter Quill hitting
He's like
Thanos,
magic kick, magic punch.
And then Peter hitting Thanos and then jumping back and like he's in a pool giving Thanos the middle finger.
Yeah,
Like,
it seemed like a video game that you would play of a Marvel video game where you're seeing all your
Special
characters
powers.
see their special powers and combos.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that was really fun. The second time I went to the movie and I saw that scene again, there's so much going on that like you have to watch it a few times to see like who's helping out who and what combo, because there's literally things flying all around the screen, and that's a really
But they
fun
work
scene.
very well together too. This isn't a forced combination, kind of like other movies you've mentioned before, where you feel that some of these characters who have never been on screen together don't really work out, but all of them.
Wow, that is a great point, man. That is a great point.
All of them work out together, and it
Wow,
felt
was
like,
that another shot of DC? I mean, I hear the underlying tone there. But that's what you're basically saying.
I don't want any death
because
threats.
well, it just goes to show that you can take characters that have nothing to do with each other and make a film that makes sense.
Yeah. You have to create dialogue and interactions that are believable and cohesively match, like instead of kind of forced together. It's like here they are, they're on screen together, so you have to believe it. It's like no, it doesn't work out that way.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then this scene also leads to the great battle between Iron Man and Thanos.
That was one of my favorite scenes. Thanos and Iron Man first meet face to face. Something that's been building since the end of Avengers 1 when Iron Man shoved a nuclear rocket right into Thanos' army. But Thanos acknowledges Tony Stark, and Tony's surprised, and he goes, "You know me?" And he goes, "Of course I know you. We're both cursed by our knowledge." And that was really a significant part in the movie, I think. And
Yeah, for sure.
well, it's going to lead into theories. Of course, we have theories about what happens next.
Well, let's talk about what happened next in that scene. Thanos snaps off Iron Man's blade and stabs him in the stomach. And did you think he died at that moment?
I really thought, well, you heard the gasp in the audience, another audience interaction. You were like,
yeah.
I did think he died.
I thought that might have been the scene, because it was a deep cut.
Gasp.
Yeah.
It was a deep gasp from the audience. But then, of course, Stephen Strange, who previously stated if he had to choose between the stone and Spider-Man and Iron Man, he would choose between the stone, gave up the stone.
Yeah, gives up the stone again.
And then Thanos at that point.
At that
has
point,
four
you
of them.
just knew, like, oh crap.
So at that point, when Stephen Strange gives up the time stone, I have some theories about what that meant, but we'll go into that a little bit later. Let's just continue on with. So one of my favorite scenes in this movie is also one of my favorite team ups between Rocket and Thor, which I thought was excellent. They go to Nidavellir to recreate a new hammer for Thor. Stormbreaker. And we actually get Peter Dinklage, who plays a giant dwarf.
Yeah. You know what? For me, as I was happy to see Peter in a Marvel film again because he was also in Days of Future Past, if
Yes.
you remember that. Uh, but I kind of felt like this, it kind of stuck out a little bit. I wasn't a huge fan of the dwarf story part. I think they could have done it a little bit better. But
Well, I think
tell
that
me, tell me what you did like about
I
it.
think the dwarf story part was important because Neverdelir in Norse mythology is actually a place where the king of dwarfs lives, and this was supposed to be a group of individuals who were responsible for most of Asgard's weapons, and we see
Making
actually
king's weapons.
king's weapons, like things that no mortal's able to withstand, and we actually see the creation of the gauntlet, which is something that was never explained in the comics. The
Yeah,
comics
because we
kind
see
of
the mold of a gauntlet. Rocket points it out.
and also Thor asks Peter Dinklage's character about it, and he goes, "Well, Thanos basically came, killed off all the dwarves, cut off his hand so he could never construct another weapon, and left."
I thought he put his hands in the smolding metal, and that's
Is
why they
that what
were.
he did? And
Yeah,
is that why his hands were
yep.
metal? Okay,
I'm
so
pretty
I
sure
thought
that's what
that
it
he
was.
cut his hands off and then just molded metal hands on him. But
Mm.
now that makes more sense. That he kind of created he encased his hands forever in metal so he can never work again. But I did like how they created an origin story for the gauntlet. They
Yeah,
told that it was constructed by the same group of individuals who constructed Thor's first hammer and constructed the Stormbreaker.
yeah, that was cool. That was again callbacks to other films. Now let me talk about my favorite scene of the whole movie, and it's a scene right out of the comics. The snap, the gauntlet snap. And in this scene, just like in the comics, Thanos destroys half the universe. Um, and this is where it just, bust out the tissues because this is where it got super sad. So first we see Thanos go to what is clearly the soul world, right?
Oh, right after he does the snap?
Right after he does
Yes.
the snap, he
Yes.
goes right into the soul world. So there's like a break, a hard break, and Thanos is in this other kind of reality
He notices he
almost.
doesn't have the gauntlet.
Doesn't
on
have
it.
the
And he
gauntlet,
notices it too. He looks down
and
and
he sees
child
Gamora,
Gamora.
the small Gamora as a child, and he goes over to her.
And she asks him if he did it.
Yeah,
And he says yes. And then she says, "At what cost?" And he says, "Everything."
yeah, because he lost not only Gamora, but he lost
All of the Black Order,
the Black Order.
which
Um,
were considered children of his. too.
Yes, exactly. Nebula as well, another child, which I guess they were on their outs anyway, but still, like,
Yeah.
that relationship's gone. But he completed his mission, but he has to lose some things.
Yeah, he
and
lost a lot.
a lot.
A lot.
At the end of this all. Then when we come back to our heroes, again, this is where you got to bust out the tissues because it's about to get super sad. It's kind of like silent, and everyone knows like something weird just happened, but everyone's kind of looking around like, what's going on? Like, what just happened? Like, Thor even asked him like, "What'd you do? What'd you just do?" I think he says.
And then Thanos backs himself. He pulls the axe out of his chest and he uses the space stone to transport himself away.
Yep. And at this moment, we hear Bucky.
No, Captain goes, "Where'd he go?"
Oh, where'd he go? Yeah,
And then
yeah.
Bucky
and then
turns to
Bucky,
Captain
and then
and
Bucky
says,
says, "Steve,"
and he just
and
dissipates.
Steve turns
into-
around, and all of a sudden, the bottom of Bucky's leg buckles in, turns to dust, and then all of Bucky turns to dust. And at this point, Ben, what are you thinking?
I was thinking, man, they did it.
Yeah,
I was like,
but
they
at
did
this
it.
point, I'm still kind of confused. Though. I'm like, wait, what's happening? Like, is this it? And it's that moment where like, holy crap, more people are gonna, and then it just,
I
and
knew
then
at
it
that point.
snowballed, and exactly at that point where I'm like, oh my god. So all right, so the snap happens. First, it's Bucky, and then we see next, Black
Well,
Panther.
first is Bucky, then is Black Panther. In our movie theater, half the audience went up in flames.
Yeah,
I thought they were gonna riot.
And what I liked about the director's choice in this scene was they angle the camera to make it look like
His general was going to be the one.
Okaye,
Yeah,
or
okay.
Michonne, Walking Dead. I'm sorry, Deanna. Uh,
That she
that
was the
it
one
looked
that
like
was.
she was the one that's gonna fade away, and then you see his arm fade away, and you're like, "What?" At this point, I'm like, "No, what? Black Panther? We
Black
just got
Panther.
him. You're
Yeah.
gonna take him away from us?" And then it's just a snowball effect. Then it goes,
Scarlet Witch.
no, Groot first.
Oh, Groot
And it's
first,
Groot,
yeah.
which is sad. That's when it starts getting super sad, actually, because Rocket's like concerned and sad, and he's like, "No, no," and then you see Groot as a teenager kind of falling away, and then
So then we have Scarlet Witch immediately dissipating into dust. Then we have Falcon. It jumps to Titan, where we witness Mantis disappearing, Drax, Peter Quill, Doctor Strange, who then turns to Tony Stark and says it was the only choice. And then a very emotional scene between Spider-Man and Iron Man.
yeah, and that was another moment where there was a lot of fan reaction in the crowd, where
Yeah.
everyone was super
It was a
sad.
very, very
I think I even heard
father-son.
someone crying in the theater.
I
Honestly,
could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, very father son moment. He was the young character, and it goes back to one of my theories, though. Check it out.
You
I
said
did say, and I believe your words were, they would never kill off Spider-Man this soon. He just came into this universe, but they kind of did it, and I have a feeling when they do Avengers 4, we're going to see that other part of my theory, that the Time Stone might be the one to bring him back. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Um, but let's go back to the snap, okay? So we see all these characters turn to dust, and then we go back to Thanos. With the gauntlet. But what's the
that's
gauntlet
when
looking like?
Thor said to him, "What'd you do?" And you could see the gauntlet got kind of destroyed. Now, that never happened in the comic, but it was an interesting aspect that they decided to take that, maybe that kind of force and power emitted by using all 6 stones at once to kill half the universe. The gauntlet wasn't designed to withstand it. And it looked like it kind of broke into pieces, or at least was not the same as when it started.
Yep. And like you said, he uses the space stone to
Disappear.
to transport himself. So at this point, Thanos accomplished his mission, and we see that he teleported himself to what I think is Gamora's planet,
That's an interesting theory.
and he sits out and watches the sunrise,
On a grateful universe, just like he said he was going to do.
just like in the comic.
Now,
just how the comic is.
in an allegory in art is that a sunrise, it means the dawn of God's ends and the dawning of man starts, which could be like a subtext, like kind of symbolism for what's to come in the next movie.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and that's how the movie ends.
Have you ever been in a movie theater that an audience sat in stunned silence?
Yeah,
at the end of the
exactly.
movie?
The crowd reaction was priceless. Everyone was sitting there like, "Oh, what the
There
f
was
just
no
happened?"
clapping. There was no there was not a person, even the noisy guy in the back was silent. Like
Yeah,
it was like,
it was very quiet
Yeah,
in
it
that
was
theater.
crazy.
It really felt like we lost someone that we knew.
Yeah.
And what was even more funny is that when they showed that end title shot of the Avengers, it turned to dust, and everyone in our theater at that moment all went, "Aw." And I was like, "Oh, damn." It's like, yeah, way too soon, guys. Which then led us to the moment in all Marvel films that we wait for and anticipate, the bonus scene.
They have me trained waiting for non-Marvel movies that I'm even waiting for bonus scenes that never come.
Yeah, did you feel that this the credits in this to get to the bonus scene were extremely long?
Well, there
like I
was
felt like we
no-
had like 10 minutes.
There was no mid
Credit scene,
bonus
yeah,
which
yeah,
we
yeah.
usually get, and I think most of the audience is waiting for. There was one bonus scene, and there was really dark, ominous music too during like
For
the
sure.
credits,
You
yeah.
see Nick Fury and Robin from How I Met Your Mother. I always forget her agent name. I know it's Agent something
You want me
something.
to look it up?
It doesn't matter. No,
No.
let's just keep it as Agent Robin.
Agent Robin.
All right,
Aunt
we
Robin.
see Aunt Robin and Nick Fury driving along, and a car crashes, and then they go to see what happened, and there's no one in there, and then a helicopter's crashing into a
We're
building.
seeing the ramifications of Thanos' snap on normal populations, like
Yes.
normal people just doing their everyday lives. lives just disappearing.
Yep. So that's why the car crashed, the helicopter crash, just
crashes.
half the universe is gone, just like that. And in that same moment, Aunt Robin starts turning to dust herself. Nick Fury at this point is like, "Yo, I need to call in
He
reinforcements."
runs to the car and grabs like a pager.
It looks like an
a
old school,
high-tech.
high tech, but old school pager.
Yeah.
And he pages someone, and just as he's about to drop his classic Samuel L. Jackson F bomb, and he starts fading to dust as well.
That was a nice touch.
The pager drops, and it's the logo of Captain
Well,
Marvel.
it says sending, and then it switches to the logo of Captain Marvel.
Yep, exactly. So
Which some people had to be explain that into, like, I know that I heard people explaining to their friends who didn't know the comic books in theater. It's like, oh, that's Captain Marvel.
Well, I don't think many people in general really know much about Captain Marvel. I don't really know too much about her. I think it's a character that we're going to learn a lot about in her film. And I think it's a character that we're going to really grow to love. And she's going to hold an important part in Avengers 4.
I think she's going to be holding a very important part in Avengers 4.
All right, so let's see how that pans out. All right, but let's also do an honorable mention because the Wakanda battle scene was amazing. They really F-ish up, let's just say that. But you know what? We didn't get as much Wakanda in this as I thought that we would. The trailer made it look like it seemed a lot of this movie was there, but it really didn't end up. It was just kind of the last little battle scene.
Jumped back and forth,
which is cool. But I felt like I could have used a little bit more Black Panther in this movie.
How exciting was that when Black Panther and Captain America are running towards like the front line? And
Yeah,
they're just boosting like ahead of everybody else.
That was an awesome scene. And then they're battling those like space alien Rottweilers or whatever the hell they were.
They were scary.
Yeah.
And then we had Thor coming back from.
That was an awesome scene in this movie
with the windbreaker.
Windbreaker. He came back with the Stormbreaker, bro. He didn't come back with a new Fila or Adidas windbreaker on a fall afternoon. All right, it was a Stormbreaker. Get it right.
He came back with Stormbreaker and basically tore the house down.
Yeah, he throws that axe, hammer, whatever you want to call it, and it's just going around slicing all these fools, and he's throwing lightning and all sorts of stuff.
This is a different Thor than we've seen in the past because if you think about it, this movie starts with Asgardians, all the Asgardians getting killed. He just witnessed his brother's neck broken. His father's dead. His mother's dead. And he's pissed.
Yeah.
And you see he's pissed. And he acts pissed. And I like that. This was a much different happy-go-lucky Thor.
Maybe it's the eye. Maybe it's that new random eye that Rocket gave him. Maybe that's giving him this new swag and attitude. Who knows? All right, let's talk about all the characters that passed away and let's play the game. Do you think they're coming back or they're dead for good? All right, let's start with the first character, Ben Hemdell.
Yeah.
You think he's dead for good?
I think anyone that Thanos didn't kill with the Infinity Gauntlet is dead for good.
Okay, I agree with you on that. Hemdell is gone, and that also leaves us with Loki who... unfortunately, I do think is gone, but you never know with him. He is a trickster. I think it's hard to make another Thor movie. Not that you need Loki, but in the storyline of Thor, Loki is his greatest nemesis. And we've already seen 3 or 4 now at this point of Thor's greatest nemesis. So we're kind of not left with too many of his headliners of his rogue gallery. So that's why I'm like, getting rid of Loki is detrimental, I think, to his enemy list. But we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, but then again, Marvel's also good at taking lower key villains and turning them up a notch. I mean, we saw that in Spider-Man with Vulture. Vulture wasn't really a all-out intense character, interesting in like Spider-Man Rogues Gallery, but they really raised them up a notch. So
You're right about that. You're actually right about that.
We could see a lower end Thor character come in and get turned up to 10, maybe even Beta Ray Bill. I mean, he's got Stormbreaker, and that was actually Beta Ray Bill's weapon in the comic books.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll definitely see him in the next Thor movie. I think they've already hinted at that.
They did in Thor Ragnarok.
So cool. All right. So Gamora, she's next on the chopping block. I think she is really dead. But I think there are ways in the Guardians universe that they could easily bring her back. I mean, we've already dealt with Celestials and things of that nature of creating life. Who knows? Maybe there's something in the universe that we don't know about that, maybe the Guardians are able, because I'm sure Peter will want to try to bring Gamora back if there was a way. Maybe that's what Guardians 3 is about. I kind of also have a prediction about Guardians 3. Maybe it's actually events that happened before uh this Avengers movie. So maybe it happens in between volume 2 and and
It's
so
a
maybe it happens
pre-Infinity
between
War.
volume 2 and Infinity War. Maybe that's
That'd
what
be
happened.
interesting.
So you could bring Gamora back that way for the movie, but she is still really dead in the storyline.
They could also just continue the storyline without her. I mean,
And that's the thing,
it's
they
Guardians of the
might,
Galaxy.
and they definitely might. And I think it's very easy to write a new love interest for Peter Quill.
They've already got the female character in Mantis, and then they can continue on with Peter Quill's like kind of playboy cavalier
Exactly.
personality
Yep.
that was in the first Guardians.
So unfortunately, I do think Gamora's done, but I want her back, I think.
Now, this also goes into my theory that everyone who got killed by the Gauntlet will be brought back in the next one, or eventually when they defeat Thanos. Now, Gamora was not technically killed by the Gauntlet, but she was sacrificed for the Soul Stone. So
Yep.
she might be trapped in the Soul Stone.
Yeah, well, we do see her in the soul realm.
The ethereal realm when Thanos snaps his fingers.
Yeah,
and he
I mean, she
sees-
is a child, but it does look like her soul is there, right?
Yeah, it's maybe how Thanos remembers her. That's how she survived.
So I guess we'll see what happens with that. Next, Vision. He, I think, is dead, but I mean, it's very easy to bring him back if they wanted to. It looked like Shuri had downloaded some of Vision's, I don't know, memory. He is an IA, so maybe she saves a lot of it, maybe 88%, or maybe she saves enough of him that when he comes back, he's not the same Vision that he was, the guy in love with Scarlet Witch. He doesn't have any of that part of him, but he still has the Vision capabilities of being an AI.
Now remember, Bruce Banner and Tony Stark are still alive, and they're who created Vision. So they might be able to take the husk of whatever's left over from him and
Yep.
find a way.
And in the
to-
comics, we've seen different versions of Vision, so that would be very fitting. But we also don't necessarily need him much anymore at this point.
No,
Um,
he was a purposeful character for the Mind Stone.
Yeah. So we'll see. Maybe he comes back, maybe he doesn't. There are some options there. But then all of the characters that died, Bucky, Black Panther, Groot, Scarlet Witch, Falcon, Mantis, Drax, Star-Lord, Doctor Strange, and Spider-Man, they all died via the Gauntlet snap. I think they'll all come back. I guess I have a little theory that maybe the Avengers that lived will have to sacrifice their lives for the guys who have died, perhaps. One thing I really would have liked for them to do in this scene, I think it would have made it way more believable if they didn't kill Spider-Man and Black Panther. Because the fact that them killing them told me that, oh, all these characters will be coming back, because we already know Black Panther and Spider-Man have sequels in the works.
Now, there are theories out there speculating that there are no real sequels in the works, that it's just a ploy to kind of trick fans of the comic book world not to know that they were going to get killed in the movie. Now, I don't believe it.
Yeah, I don't listen, both of those movies made a ton of money. Black Panther $1 billion. Spider-Man, I'm sure, way over 400 million.
Spider-Man's video game's getting dropped in October.
So they're not going to lose those
anytime soon.
characters so soon. If they do, man, that's a dick move.
I don't think they are. This also, we're going to go into this in our theories after, because if you read the Infinity Gauntlet, the comic book it's based on, most of the universe does come back. It doesn't come back completely the same way.
Yeah.
But they come back.
All right, so let me ask you this, Ben. Ready? Save one, trade one.
Oh,
You could save one of the heroes that died, but you have to trade him with one of the living. Who are you going with?
now, without question, Black Widow I would trade and save Groot.
Why would you get rid of Scarlet Joe? That's
Listen, I love
come on.
Scarlett Joe. Like, I have no hate for her, but Groot's so much more important to me. I don't. I guess I just don't think. I don't think Scarlett.
All right, ready for mine? I would go um save Spider-Man, kill War Machine. We already have an Iron Man. Why do we need a War Machine?
Man, you're a Dusty hater, huh?
Um so there you go. How about this, Ben? Let me ask you this. What was the most impactful death of the movie to you?
Vision's death. I
That
think
was an
Vision's
awesome death. Which death? The first one or the second one?
Both of them. I think not only both of them, but also what proceeded with Thanos walking up to Scarlet Witch, who after she just destroyed the Mind Stone, like trying to commiserate with her, and she, scorns him and says, "You won't understand." He says, "I understand more than anybody else."
That was such a difficult scene to watch because it was Scarlet Witch killing the man that she loved because that was the only way to destroy the stone. So to watch that death was hard, but she was definitely putting up a nice fight against Thanos, which I liked.
Again, her powers are exceptionally growing.
Yeah, we saw a lot of her powers in this film. They've grown. She was stopping those huge metal swirling bladey things in Wakanda. I don't know how to describe it better than that. The donut looking things that had the blades on them that came up to the ground. She stopped them in midair and then slammed him down on that alien dogs. But anyway, yeah. Then to watch Vision die though, and to watch Thanos so confidently just
Turn
use
back
the
the
time
clock of
stone
time. Yeah.
like we've seen in Doctor Strange to bring him back just to kill him again.
Well,
and not to kill him, just to rip it out of his
the
head.
thing out of his head,
Like
leaving a huge hole in
Yeah.
his forehead.
It
That
was
just-
ruthless is what it was. And then he just throws the body, dismisses it to the side, and wow, definitely impactful.
Yes.
For me, it would have to be the Gamora scene. I didn't see it coming. It was a turning point in the film where you again, like in the beginning with Loki, it was one of those, wow, we don't know what we're expecting. When Gamora died, I felt that again because I was like, whoa, these are huge characters that are dying, and for important reasons too.
With character development behind it too. This
Yeah.
isn't just like, oh, we're gonna kill a character as a shock and awe. We're developing a story here, and her death is.
And at this point, I knew Peter Quill's reaction later in the film was not going to be good,
Dude,
and
he
something was
messed
going to
up.
happen.
Yeah, he messed up.
Something that was going to happen. So how about this? Because there's that argument online, and everyone's like, Peter fucked up, right? Yeah, he did. But going back, it was actually Gamora's fault from the beginning, because when Thanos was torturing Nebula, she should have just let Thanos kill Nebula and not gave up where the Soul Stone was.
Well, you could also say that going after the Reality Stone was a huge mistake, because they should have just never went after the Reality Stone. She should have
Good point.
assumed he had the Reality Stone and went into hiding, or at least abandoned the
and
Guardians
just
of the Galaxy,
and
went
just
on her own.
protected that one stone that
Yeah.
she knew that he didn't know about.
Yeah.
I guess there's a lot of what ifs, but the
There's
way
a
it
lot
all
of what
played
ifs.
out,
I mean, the whole movie
was
is about
nice,
a what
you know?
ifs. How could this have gone differently? Yeah, it was nice. It was great. It was great storytelling. This whole movie was great storytelling.
All right, how about this, Ben? What was your favorite joke in the film? Because this movie was packed with jokes throughout it. A lot of them were great, and they hit almost every time. Then sometimes there were jokes on top of jokes where the audience was laughing so much, I didn't catch the second joke until the second time I saw it.
All right, my favorite recurring joke is how Thor kept calling Rocket Rabbit. And my favorite joke was when Rocket asks Bucky how much for the gun, and he says it's not for sale, and he goes, all right, well, how much for the arm? And he's like, that's not for sale, and he's like, I'm getting that arm.
Yeah, Rocket was hysterical throughout this movie, that's for sure. All right, and my favorite joke of the movie was when Doctor Strange asked Peter Quill, wait, let me ask you this one time. What master do you serve? And Peter Quill goes, oh, what do you want me to say, Jesus? That was such a great joke because they were all there for the same reason, but they didn't realize it.
No, they were all fighting each other, and it was great because they realized at that point they all were on the same team. And that's when I go back to how they easily combined all of these characters from almost 4 different movies to interact so believably on the same screen.
100%, 100%. All right, so how about this, Ben? This movie wasn't perfect by any means. There's always one or two little things you can nitpick, but we usually do, at least a bad or ugly in our reviews of the film. So for me, I guess if I had to pick, well, I said it before, maybe there could have been a little bit more Wakanda, but we did get a lot of it, obviously, with Black Panther. But I would say some of the CGI on Proxima Midnight wasn't great.
I think comparatively to Ebony Maw
And Thanos. Yeah.
she seemed like she was not.
Maybe they didn't have enough in the budget or time
I think
to
it's-
polish her,
yeah.
because some of her fight scenes, it really seemed like I was watching like a Final Fantasy video game at points, which it wasn't terrible, but once again, way better CGI than we saw in Justice League with Superman's shave job or Steppenwolf. So, if I had to pick something, it'd probably be the Proxima Midnight CGI.
Yeah, it's not like her CGI was terrible. It just wasn't as
Crisp
perfect
on
as
some
the-
shots.
as
Yeah.
the other two. Yeah.
All right, but let's talk about predictions. Ben, I'll let you start.
Okay, so to go back to the whole thing on Titan with Doctor Strange. Now, if you remember Doctor Strange, he foresaw millions of different versions of how they were going to defeat Thanos to get the Infinity Gauntlet off of him. And he said out of those millions, there was only one that he saw them winning.
Yep.
Now, you remember Doctor Strange said to them when they were on the ship, if I have to choose between the Spider-Boy and you and the Time Stone, I'm choosing the Time Stone. But then he saw Tony Stark get stabbed, and he easily gave up the Time Stone. Now, there was no real emotional build up there, and I don't think that's a plot flaw. I think that Doctor Strange foresaw that the important aspect to defeating Thanos was Tony Stark surviving. And Tony is an important factor in defeating Thanos. My theory was that both Iron Man and Captain America died in this movie, which obviously I was wrong.
We're all wrong. Everyone thought
everyone
one
was
of
wrong.
those two were dying.
But in this next one, in part 4, their reunion is what is able to catalyze the team as a force. And Doctor Strange foresaw that, which is why he sacrificed the Time Stone to Thanos. If you remember, they never met up in this movie, and they haven't seen each other since Civil War.
Yeah, since the end of Civil War, where they weren't on speaking terms. Yeah.
Now, if you think of the name Avengers, it's to avenge. Now, what happens if Avengers, they're really avenging half of the universe.
Yeah, or the death of their friends, and
Which
exactly.
is with Captain America and Iron Man back together to defeat the enemy. So then I also have another theory as we go back to Red Skull. You remember you were talking about how Red Skull, he wasn't gone.
Yeah.
I don't think he's gone either.
So you think we're going to see him again in another Marvel film?
Well, he was cursed to be the steward of the Soul Stone by the Tesseract. Now that the Soul Stone has been released, Thanos has both of the stones. Maybe he is no longer cursed and forced to watch over the stone that's no longer there.
Yeah, he's released from his imprisonment, maybe.
Yes.
That's what I'm thinking as well. And yeah, that's why it goes back to what I said originally about Red Skull. I think the person who has to take out Captain America has to be Red Skull.
Well,
I can't, it would make more sense for the comic fan for it to go down that way.
I think it would be a beautiful circle if they had, because remember the Secretary of State wanted wanted Rhodes to arrest Captain America, and then he kind of just shut him off. What happens after it's all said and done? The movie ends. They defeat Thanos. Captain America turns himself in for war crimes he committed in Civil War. And like in the comic at the end of Civil War, he's leaving the courthouse, maybe in handcuffs.
Yep,
He
nice.
gets shot by a bullet by Red Skull.
Yeah, and then that right from there, you can go into a whole new Captain America, whether you want it to be Bucky
Captain Marvel.
or Captain Marvel even. And, Red Skull can maybe be the villain, moving forward for that. There are options. We'll see what they do with it. All right, so I like that idea. I mean, like I said before, I think the Red Skull needs to be the guy who takes out Steve Rogers. It only makes sense. You could also set that up for the next chapters that they write with this Captain America character, whether it's Bucky or Falcon taking up the mantle, or how you suggested even maybe Captain Marvel is the new Captain America, quote unquote, but just, keep the Captain Marvel name.
Now, I've been completely wrong in the past, so I have a feeling I'm going to be completely wrong again. But that, some things that could work out due to what I've read in the comics.
And like I mentioned before, I think maybe one of my predictions might have to be some of these heroes might have to sacrifice their lives to save the lives of the characters who died. Because if you see all the characters who died, a lot of them have new movies that are going to come out in the next few years, and a lot of the characters that are living are a lot of the original cast, which a lot of their contracts are going to be up. So this would be a great way to kind of maybe figure something out like that. Because again, to use the Soul Stone, you need to sacrifice a life before you can use it. So even if they get the gauntlet from Thanos and they get all the stones, the only way to wield it, or the only way to control it, is to sacrifice a soul. So again, maybe there is a trade-off with Captain and Tony at some point. Maybe Tony goes to grab the gauntlet and put it on, and the only way that it could work is to sacrifice a life, and maybe
He
someone
sacrifices himself
and
for
some
Spider-Man.
and someone or no, I was thinking Steve, is the kind of guy who lays down on the grenade for the other guy.
He
Something
did it
like
in the
that.
movie.
We'll see how it all
Yeah.
works out, but these are just some wild theories that we have. And then, all this is kind of, there's some whispers talking about the secret invasion, the Skrulls, and that maybe that they have been among us all along. So there's rumors that maybe some of the characters that we know and love are secretly a Skrull right now.
Now, that's a way that you can also introduce characters who have been killed before. Like you were talking about Loki. Is he gone? What happens if Loki comes back and it's not Loki?
Great
it's a Skrull.
point.
Or even
Yes.
Gamora. Gamora is not.
That's a great way to bring
yeah.
back characters, 100%.
You could bring them back as Skrulls, and we think they're alive.
And
they
I'm
play off a
sure
couple-
throughout the next few months leading up into next year, we'll have a lot more predictions and wild theories that'll be circling the internet that we'll come back on an episode and discuss and debate. And then a year from now, we'll all be wrong again. Because we didn't predict this movie. We were totally wrong. I was right about Red Skull. I was right about Spider-Man. Everything else, absolutely wrong. But damn, Ben, what a great film, right?
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Did it make it to your top one of all your Marvel films?
Okay, so I was thinking about this before, and I would say it is one of my favorites, and it could possibly be my favorite, but it would be unfair to the others. It's kind of like Terminator 2. Terminator 2 may be a better movie than the original Terminator, but you can't appreciate Terminator 2 unless you've seen the other Terminator movie. So, like, with this movie, is it better than the others? Possibly, but we wouldn't be here without the other movies. So
Yeah.
it's like kind of, you can't really say like it is better and like, oh, it's the best, because the other movies are what built it to be the best.
Sort of like, I mean, a lot of people have been comparing this to Empire Strikes Back. But that goes along to what you're saying right now, is that Empire Strikes Back was an amazing film, but what would have been without Star Wars, that foundation?
Exactly.
And this is that kind of Empire Strikes Back, because all our heroes, much like the ending of Empire, they're not in a good position leaving
No,
this film.
it leaves it on
The
the
bad
very-
guys are winning at the end of this film, much like Empire. So that's cool and that's fun. And there hasn't really been an ending like this, such a cliffhanger for me, since this is better than the Walking Dead cliffhanger. That's the only thing I can kind of compare it to, is that cliffhanger to see who Negan was going to kill, because that season ends off with Negan about to bash the brains of, or does bash the brains of two people, but we don't know who they are. That's kind of what I feel here, is that the bad guys won, Thanos won, all our heroes are dead. All our heroes got their heads bashed in like
They're
Walking Dead.
and they're scattered across
And
the universe.
we don't know how anything positive is going to come from this moment, but we do know we're going to have another movie, and we'll see how it all pans out.
Thank God we don't have to wait 2 years for it.
Yeah, Jesus, that would have been terrible. We got 1 year counting down the days. In the meantime, though, there's a whole lot of stuff coming out this year, a whole lot of movies to look forward to in the next couple months. Now, check this out. Because I will be on the road for the next few weeks, we're going to be a couple weeks late on a Deadpool 2 review. But in the meantime, we got another good show for you lined up in about 2 weeks. Ben, why don't you tell them about that?
Well, next show we will focus specifically on what's on TV. The series roundup of Flash, the ending to Arrow, what we think of Legion and Krypton, plus any DVD releases that are about to come out. Now, make sure you listen to our next episode, episode 5, for the Thanos Pop Funko giveaway, as one of our loyal geek family will win the Mad Titan himself on our 6th episode. Listen for details on how to qualify for the drawing. Keep subscribed to us on iTunes and YouTube at Infinite Universe Podcast.
And remember, we may be assholes, but we are not 100% dicks. That's it for this episode. I'm Jay Days.
I'm Ben Metlis.
We're out of here. Oh no, we're turning to dust. Dust in the wind. Another one bites the dust. All right, until next time. Peace.